And I remember talking to her and I said, what do we do? Because I did not want to do any internal checks. I had not done any internal checks. Some doctors recommend doing an internal check at 38 weeks or 39 weeks. But from what I had read, I was just like, it's not going to tell you anything. Whether even if I'm 2 centimeters dilated, I could deliver either tomorrow or after 2 weeks. So I didn't want to do that.
This is the Birth Agni podcast, the fire that brings us alive, that burns myths and opens a channel of authentic natural birth stories. This show debunks the many myths of the medicalized births, showcases the plethora of choices a pregnant couple can make to embark on their empowered birth journey. I'm Divya Kapoor, a certified birth and lactation counselor and an aspiring traditional birth attendant. Let's get the flames blazing high. Often, birthing in the hospitals is the only choice women have, unless you are doing a birth center birth or a free birth, or you're birthing at home with a local midwife. And we have a good bag of all these stories from episode 73 onwards for your dose of home birth, free birth, birth center birth stories. And what's interesting to me is that despite the long standing results showing that women birthing at home have better outcomes, not even in terms of the birth outcomes, but birth experiences, there is very little effort to normalize home births. Rashmi's story today is an eye opener because she is supported by a doctor who does home births, yes, and in Mumbai. The care here, and I'm pleasantly surprised, it's quite hands off, but yes, there are still interventions which are really less as compared to a hospital birth. And that's a welcome change for women who are decided on a hospital birth and would like to have the perceived safety of an expert at their birth. So, this gives them an option. Also, for the sake of clarity and for our lovely radical listeners, I did draw parallels in spiritual midwifery from time to time during this story. Rashmi is a popular prenatal yoga expert from Mumbai and in her 36-hour labor, which, by the way, is normal for a lot of women. A lot of first time mothers expect yourself to labor for approximately 2 to 3 days, yeah, and be fantastically grateful for a shorter labor. And let me tell you, sometimes shorter labors are not as great, they're not as good experiences. Rashmi in all of this was great. She maintained her control, going from water to out, and eventually birthing out of water in spite of a planned water birth. I know you're intrigued by now. Let's dig further into her story. So, Rashmi, we'll begin with your introduction and then we'll go on to your story of a home birth and how did you come to the decision of it?
Cool. So my name is Rashmi. I am started off being a dancer, went on to being a yoga teacher. I've been teaching yoga for I think over 15 years now. And I also dabbled in a little bit of theater and speech and drama. I used to work a lot with children, direct plays with them. I used to perform a lot, dance a lot. I used to perform for shows. I'm based in Mumbai, and yeah, I'm 37 years old. And usually, when a 37-year-old gets pregnant, most doctors might say this is a geriatric pregnancy, but I did not get that from any doctor I went to, thankfully. I think it's good fortune of having good doctors around in Bombay, maybe. And also, another thing is, being healthy and being fit really helps. So, yeah, that's about me.
Mm-hmm. And how did you decide on a home birth? Did you have any friends, any of the family members who had a home birth, so you were interested in that, or?
So, I did not think of it initially. And only towards the end of my pregnancy did I decide that, okay, this is what I wanted to do. But I started thinking about it maybe in my second trimester, towards the end of my second trimester. My sister had two water births in a hospital and she had good experiences. So I was aiming for a water birth with the same doctor that she went to. Eventually, I did not end up sticking with a doctor. But I saw a Facebook post of a college friend of mine. Just randomly, I just was on Facebook and she put up this post about how she had a home birth. It was her second delivery and she decided to do it at home. So when I saw that, I immediately, I messaged her and I asked her how her experience was and what she did. And since she's based in Bombay, since I spoke to her, she was able to give me a lot of references and resources of what she did and all of that. She did a hypnobirthing course. She had a doula at home and she had a doctor. So the same doctor also did the home birth for me. But yeah, I think she was one of the main factors behind going ahead with this home birth also, because she was so encouraging. The only apprehension that I had was that it is the first time that I was having a baby. And I didn't know what labor would be like. Like when you've done it once before, then I think you're a little bit more confident the second time around because you know what to expect. That was the only apprehension, that I had never done this before. So would I be able to do this at home? Would it be difficult? That was the only thing. I think Payal and also everyone around me was very confident and comforting. So I decided to go ahead with it.
Well, lovely. So everybody at home was very confident about your decision or your inclination.
Well, so my sister we're very close, and it's good to have somebody who's had two kids, and I'm also very close to her kids. So she was very encouraging, and she was also like, if this is what you feel is right, go for it. My mom was a little scared, I think, because I remember her saying, she said, just go and do it in the hospital, because what if something happens? Then at least you have some medical facility available. But my mom did not say don't do it, because she's also the kind of person who says, you do what you got to do, and you will figure it out. Yeah, and my husband, one day he was also he was, for him, he was just like, if you're comfortable, then I'm good. If you don't feel okay doing it, then we don't do it. So I'll be there with whatever you decide. So yeah, everyone was kind of okay with it, but I did not tell anybody else about it. I did not tell close family, friends, because I remember having a conversation with one friend, and there was just so many questions around it, and that made me like, when people start to question, then that changes your mindset a little bit. So then I decided that I just don't want to tell anybody about anything. Let me get done with it, and then I'll say, hey, this is what we did. Sometimes people tend to throw their fears on you when you yourself are not scared and you feel okay about it. So I told everybody, I'm going to so and so hospital. If something happens, I'm going to that hospital. This is my doctor. It was completely the opposite of what I was planning. It was a wrong doctor. It's a wrong hospital. And I was joking with my husband. I was saying that, we'll have the baby and then everybody will turn up at the hospital and they'll realize nobody's here anymore. So yeah, I think not telling anybody helped my mindset and helped me to stay calm.
Hmm. That's a huge thing to not tell people. And we do tell women who plan a home birth to not tell people who might interfere in your decision, and people who also want to have a normal birth. Sometimes even that is looked frowned upon today. And why do you want to go for it? Why, it's the people have heard horror stories about normal births as well, and they put across their fears onto you. They want to instill it in you till they convince you. So that's also a part of, there's a subtle coercion. So it's a great thing that you did that. And I do want to ask you, why did you disconnect from the doctor who offers water births?
One is, I did ask the doctor if they would, come home and do the home birth. But because they're affiliated with a certain hospital, and I think the hospital has their rules and regulations, you're not okay. And the doctor that I eventually went with, Dr. Manjari, she has her own hospital. So she has a little bit more liberty with what she can do, and she's very pro home births. So, and I did ask her, the first time I met her, I asked her, how many times have you had to transfer to a hospital during a home birth? She said never. They did not do any offer any home births. And I just felt a little more confident with Dr. Manjari.
More reassured.
Yeah.
So, how was the experience of births? Um, you know, how did that make you feel from the time that you were pregnant? So, we all are anxious about labor, especially as a first time mom. How is it going to go? How did you visualize it to how it happened, and how do you feel about it now?
Okay. So I am also a prenatal yoga teacher. So I teach people what they can and cannot do during pregnancy. So I knew exactly what to do during pregnancy, and I was very, very active. I worked out a lot. I went for swims. I went to the gym. I did yoga. I went on hikes. Everything. I didn't stop doing anything. So in my head, I was just like, wow, this labor and birth is going to be so easy. It's going to be so quick, and everything's going to be amazing, because pregnancy was a breeze for me. It was very, very easy. I didn't have any nausea. Maybe very, very little in the first few weeks, but barely anything. And only towards the end, I started having this whole lightning crotch. and it would hurt when I would walk a little bit. Um, yeah, but otherwise it was great. So for me, in my head, labor was great. It would be very quick. But when it actually happened, I had crossed 40 weeks, and I went to Dr. Manjari during my 40th week plus I think 3 days or so. And I remember talking to her and I said, what do we do? Because I did not want to do any internal checks. I had not done any internal checks. Some doctors recommend doing an internal check at 38 weeks or 39 weeks. But from what I had read, I was just like, it's not going to tell you anything. Even if I'm 2 centimeters dilated, I could deliver either tomorrow or after 2 weeks. So I didn't want to do that. So she said that, from her point of view, she said, I feel more comfortable if you do something so that I can see where you're at. And if nothing is happening, then do something like a membrane sweep. Because if you cross 41 weeks and if you go towards 42 weeks, the chances of a home birth go down, because I need to have you in a safer space. Like, she would want me to be in a hospital instead, in her hospital. So she said, because the baby grows and, you're a first time mom. So if you want to really do a home birth, then I would recommend doing a membrane sweep, and then we'll see how it goes. So I thought about it, and it's not something I wanted to do initially. But I also have two friends of mine who are also pregnant, who delivered very close to the time that I did. And the friend who had a membrane sweep, she had a baby 3 days before me. So I thought about that, and I said, okay, how bad can it be? So I went ahead and did it. It wasn't bad at all, because the way my friend had described it to me, she said it's very painful doing a membrane sweep. But for me, it wasn't. Maybe it's the doctor, maybe it's the way they do it, maybe it's just how tense your muscles are when they're doing it for you. So it was fine. Anyway, so then I went into labor on a Monday night, and it was okay. The contractions were bearable. We had our whole setup ready. My husband had the pool setup ready. He was managing everything with the warm water going in and removing the cold water, and he had this whole pipe system happening. And Dr. Manjari came in on Tuesday morning, because I was laboring the whole of Monday night. She came in on Tuesday morning. She checked me and she said, oh, because it had been, I think, about 9 hours already of having contractions, and they were around like 3 or 4 minutes apart. So first, when she heard it, she thought it would be very quick. But when she came and she saw me, she said, I think it's going to take time. So do whatever you have to do. I'll come back. And I had a doula also, Nikita. And she came, and both of them came. They saw me and they both went back. So I was laboring the whole of Tuesday, and they were back on Tuesday night, both of them. But there was very, very slight progress. Like in the morning, maybe I was 2 centimeters dilated. By evening or night, I was maybe 3 or 4 centimeters dilated. So it was very, very slow. So Dr. Manjari came and she slept off. She said, you keep going. You are not in distress. Your baby is not in distress. You just keep going for as long as you can.
That's lovely. I don't want to ask you. And before that, I want to go on pelvic examinations, on internal examinations. They are neither recommended nor required. It does become a routine procedure sometimes in the hospitals, and just how someone's practice, someone's learning is. For example, today someone learns something, they have their own. You come as a person when you're providing a service. You as a person also come in, and so today it's a known thing that pelvic floor examinations, internal examinations are not required. Like you said, they tell us nothing about labor, the progress, etc. Only if the woman really wants to know where she's at, they can really be done. Otherwise, they're completely avoidable. It's beautiful how nobody panicked you. Nobody, everybody was like, "Go on with your life." So, what were you doing in early labor, and how did those contractions feel like in your body?
So early labor, I felt very uncomfortable, and I had to be in this flat back position. So I had to bend forward and take the support of a table with my legs straight, and I needed somebody to press my back from either side. So yeah, hip squeezes. So my sister also came in on Tuesday morning. So my husband and my sister both were here throughout. So both of them were taking turns doing it. And then when Nikita, the doula, came, she was also doing it. But as it progressed, like when I asked my sister, what did it feel like for you? She said, it'll start in the back and then you'll feel it in the front. I never felt anything in the front. I was only feeling everything at the back. So then my doula said that maybe this is what they call back labor because the position of the baby might not be optimal. So she does rebozo. So she did a little bit of rebozo on Tuesday, not on Tuesday, on Wednesday morning. And I remember at around maybe 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday early morning, I decided to go into the water. I labored in water for some time. I came back out, but it was just coming and going. Like the contractions would be every 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then it would come every 10 minutes, and then again 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It was very erratic.
The
There was
hadn't
no
spectrum
pattern. Yeah, there
pattern.
was no
Hmm.
pattern. So then we decided, so we live in a bungalow and we have a garden space. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, we decided to go out and take a walk. So I walked a lot. I did some squats. I did lunges. I did a lot of stuff. And then whenever I would get a contraction, I would stop, bend forward. Somebody would press my back, and I'd continue walking. And I remember at one point, I was so determined. I was really like walking to and fro in the garden. And Nikita came to me and she said, "Listen, don't walk so much. You'll get tired. It's already been the whole day of Tuesday, and now we're on Wednesday." So she said, "You'll get tired. So don't overdo it." So I looked at her and I said, "I don't get tired." She said, "No, you will." I said, "No, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm going to keep going. I got to get this baby out." Um, so that happened. We came back up. It was still taking time. Eventually, at around, I think, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Dr. Manjari said, "Okay, now let me check and see if, there's any progress." And I think she had spoken to Malay, my husband, and she had told him that if there is no progress, then we'll have to think about going to hospital because she said I would get tired if this went on for much longer because it's already been the whole of Monday night, the whole of Tuesday, and now we were on Wednesday. So she checked and she said if it is anything less than 6 centimeters, then we'll go to hospital. If it's 6 centimeters, then it's fine. And thankfully, we were at 6 centimeters. So I was so relieved at that point that, okay, finally it's at 6 centimeters, but there's still some time to go.
Yeah, Rashmi, did that play with your psyche at any point? Did that kind of make you feel that, you are taking too much time? Your body is not exactly doing what it needs. No.
No, no, no.
Okay.
I'm very confident with my body and I'm very confident with the way things have to work. So I was just relieved at that point that I had dilated 6 centimeters. I had no clock in my room. There was no clock. I wear a smartwatch, like a fitness watch. I removed my watch. I did not see my phone. So I did not know what time it was. And I wasn't even looking at the clock because I said, however long this has to take, it will take. I don't care. But the only way I knew the time was because if I had to ask somebody. And plus the room that we were in was very dark. It was very dimly lit because that's how a birthing room should be also, right? So there was no way of knowing what the time was unless you actually stepped out or I actually saw a clock. So yeah, I was relieved at that point, but I remember I was doing these hypnobirthing tracks, and there was a track that starts off with "Dear Little Baby," and I was laboring in the water at that time. And it felt great actually to labor in the water. I didn't feel too much. I didn't feel like somebody had to press my back whenever I had a contraction. And I loved the water. I loved going for swims. So I felt like water was just next to natural way of laboring. So at this point where it said "Dear Little Baby," I just opened my eyes and said, "Get out!" I screamed out loudly, and everybody in the room just burst out laughing. So it was really funny, those funny moments. But eventually, I think at around 4 o'clock on Wednesday evening, Dr. Manjari said, "Now we really need to think about speeding things up because it's taking some time and you were looking tired." Even though mentally I would say, no, I'm not tired. I knew physically, like my eyes were feeling a little drained. So she said that she's going to give a little bit of pitocin, and the thing is, I didn't know how it would feel, and she said pitocin will just help speed things up. The good thing is in the hospital when they give you pitocin, they give you an epidural, so you don't realize the effect of pitocin. But here, after she gave me pitocin, it was just like I was on fire. The contractions just kept coming, and there was no break. So that got very intense. So the last 2 hours.
I want to break the conversation here and for the listeners, did you take childbirth classes? Because you know all the process about labor and birth even before you went into labor. So did you take childbirth classes, preparation for birth, how birth looks like, etc.?
Yeah, no, I didn't know the whole process of labor and birth. I mean, being a prenatal yoga teacher, yes, you do, but I think the childbirth classes really helped. I did a hypnobirthing course. So for me, a hypnobirthing course is the Western version of Garb Sanskar that Indians do. And it has breathing, it has meditations, it has visualizations. I think Garb Sanskar will have more mantra chanting and stuff. But some of the meditation and visualizations I would hear also because I'm a yoga teacher. It had to do a lot with the chakras. And I feel like these Westerners have taken on our Indian concepts and they have made it into, they say, oh, rainbow relaxation is what they call it. But in my head, I was just like, this is what you do, seven chakras, because it's the same colors that it you to visualize, is the same thing. Only what's missing is the mantras. So, but our hypnobirthing teacher was very good. And I think both of us were very confident because we attended it together. And I remember speaking to somebody who had done a hypnobirthing course, and she did it alone. She did not do it with her partner. And she told me how her partner was very scared throughout the labor and birthing experience because he had not participated in it with her. And she also had tried to do a home birth and eventually had to transfer to the hospital. But one of the reasons she said was because her partner was just so scared and so terrified. So thankfully, my partner wasn't. And because we had done the course together, it was helpful and we both were on the same page. So I think it's very important to do a childbirth course and to understand each other and for your partner who's also going to be with you to know what it's going to be like. So he knew what this transition phase would be like. He knew what is active labor. He knew what is initial labor. And he knew what it would feel like also. And because we had our doula with us, I remember I was in active labor and I could hear a few whispers because they were keeping very quiet. And she said, and I heard, heard that. I said, yeah, okay, fine. She was trying to tell him, but I heard that. So yeah,
And I would like to thank you, Rashmi, to bring this back up again. As a childbirth educator, I see I have to convince families to bring in their partners and say these things. So I'm sure this story really helps women and families know the
no, I
benefits of.
think one is that a lot of people think they don't need it. They say, "Arey, isme kya hai? What is there in childbirth? It's so natural. It's been happening for so many years. We don't need. We learned it in school. First of all, schools don't teach you jack shit. And also, when you do a childbirth class, I think it exposes your fears a little bit and also helps you deal with your emotions in a way. So we had seen so many positive stories of home birth, especially. So that really made us confident, and it changes your mentality because it's always mind over body.
Mhm. Always. And I love the era where you spoke about cultural misappropriation, which is happening at a rampant pace. Chakra is everywhere.
I think Indians don't know. No, Indians don't know how to market their service. Like yoga has become such a big thing in the US, for example, and they market it so well. I think Indians don't do a good job of packaging it and marketing it well. That is the problem. Yeah, it's just the breathing. They do calm breaths. It's like full yogic breathing, same thing. Then they do whatever techniques they do. It's very similar to yoga.
So, how many days were you in? So, you started on Monday and then you were in on Wednesday.
Monday,
Huh.
I gave birth on Wednesday evening, so it was around 40 hours of labor, and that's how long it was. So eventually, after she gave pitocin, it progressed a little bit faster. But even though I labored in water, I did not end up having the baby in water because when I was at around 10 centimeters, and she said, so Dr. Manji said, okay, now if you want, you can get into the water. But by then, I felt like I had run out of energy to uh, kind of do this myself, and I felt like I needed all of them, my sister, my doctor, my doula, my husband, to just be around to just get things going. So I did not deliver in the water, though. Even though I delivered, my plan was to deliver in the water, but I did not. It was the worst position to be in, but I delivered on my back eventually because she was checking me and she said, okay.
Which did you feel comfortable in there, or you just the push ejection reflex there?
I think because of pitocin, there were a lot of things that I did not necessarily know whether it was what I was feeling naturally or whether it was a pitocin. I did not feel my baby crowning necessarily, but when I see the videos now, the birthing videos, they could see the baby crowning. So they were saying, okay, he's coming out, baby's coming out, start to push. I don't think I felt the urge to push until until I actually pushed him out. And the thing is, I remember lifting if you do yoga, you'll know how you lift up into like a shoulder stand or you lift up into like a bridge pose where your hips are raised off. So when I did that, I was able to push him out better. So he came out pretty quick, but I don't know if I had the urge to push because of the dosing.
Or part of the reason could be the lying down position wherein your pelvis actually gets constricted. And when you raise your
Yeah.
hips on a bridge pose, or because your pelvis now had room and you could work with it, maybe sway it right to left, however you wanted to adjust it to feel how the baby is coming. And was there guided pushing? Because you spoke about that you were asked to push. Were you asked to push? How did that feel in your body? You just said you didn't feel like pushing, so there was a bit of a dissonance.
No, I see. It's actually very hazy right now, and the only reason I know what it was like is because I've kept watching that video over and over, and my whole team was like, "Come on, 1, 2, 3, push!" And I would push when I would get a contraction, but I think by then I was a little tired, so I was just like, "Okay, I need a break, guys. I need a break." I kept saying I need a break, and they said, and Dr. Manjari was like, "No, no, no, you're there. You're almost there." So I kept saying I need a break for maybe like half a minute, and she said, "No, you're there." Then they said push. I said, "Okay, screw that. I'm just gonna push." So I just pushed, and then he was out. So because they could see him crowning, and I think in hindsight, if there was a mirror that was in front of me, and if I saw, because I couldn't see what was happening, because no, I think nobody had anticipated. Maybe we should have anticipated that we should have had a mirror because we thought we would just do it in water. But if I had anticipated that, I would just placed a mirror there so I could see. And then if you see that, your baby is just almost out, then you'll feel like pushing
Yeah,
even
you
more.
have a connect. Were you asked to touch the baby down there when the baby was crowning? Because you did
No, no, no.
no. So one of the
No,
things
she didn't ask me.
So one of the things we do in traditional midwifery is we ask the mother to touch when she's like, I don't know what's happening. And it's very common that women after 2, 3 days are like, I don't know what's happening, whether I'll be able to do it. Oh my, have you ever heard things like, oh my yoni is small, it's not gonna stretch, it hasn't stretched enough, and when the baby is right there. So we ask the woman to touch to feel the connect and the adrenaline rush that brings in because your body works on hormones, and that really gets the mother on board. And it's real to feel that tiredness, to want a minute. And one of the other things we do not do in traditional midwifery, and I'm just bringing it out for the listeners to know that there's another way that's also there, is not push. There is no directed pushing. It's when the woman feels the urge to push, she may push, or she breathes out the baby. So you breathe, and with the breath, your yoni opens because it's all connected. The pelvic floor and your breath is connected. So the yoni opens, and the yoni it opens as in it relaxes. Really, it is already dilated. Everything is already dilated. You are relaxing, and we relax down there. The baby slips out on its own. So there is no pushing. So that's also another way.
Yeah, that's what we had learned even in hypnobirthing because it was all about breathing. So I was constantly, that's what I was doing
Mm.
with my breath. Or I had this, because she said to relax the jaw. So I was like, I think this was the breathing that I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was constantly doing that. Even while pushing, I was
Mm, that's great. So, did you rest in those 2, 3 days? Did you eat? How did the days look like? And did you sleep in the night? How were the nights? How were the days?
No, I did not sleep at night, but I think I rested in between. When I was laboring in the water, I was dozing off a little bit. But it was not like, okay, chalo, I slept for like 5, 6 hours and now I'm awake. I did not get to do that because my contractions are very regular. I didn't get a break from the contractions. So I couldn't sleep. I drank a lot of coconut water. I had a lot of fruits. I didn't eat any like solid, like, lunch, dinner kind of thing. But I was constantly staying hydrated. So I think a lot of hospitals also say food and water not allowed and all of that. But I think that's contrary to what people should do because you need energy and you need that hydration.
Absolutely.
So that really kept me going.
Were you also using the washroom again and again, going to the toilet?
Yeah, yeah. Whenever I needed to go, I was going. And because this is also something that we had learned in our childbirthing class, and she had told us that if you feel like you need to pee, you better go because you don't want your bladder to get full, and that will come in the way of the baby coming out. So I knew all of these things. So I would keep going whenever I had to.
And how did the transition feel? So, your labor was intense from the very beginning. It was a back labor. And it has happened because while the baby is going through the pelvis, the bones are moved and there's a pressure there on your pelvic floor. And So how did it feel from the beginning towards when you were transitioning, when the labor became patterned? How did that feel in your body? Was it similar to what it was in the beginning, or was there an elevation that you felt in terms of intensity?
No, I felt like the intensity of it was the same throughout till the Pitocin was administered. So it was just intense from the start till the time Pitocin came. After Pitocin came, it was just even more intense. But I remember feeling the baby in my birth canal because I didn't know what that would feel like. And in my head now, when I think about it, I'm like, how was this baby there in, in the birth canal? How did it actually happen? Because when you visualize it as such a small space, and then you have such a big baby, and he was a big baby also. When he was, at least for Indian standard, that's what the doctor said.
How
So
much did he weigh when he
he
was
was
born?
3.5 kilos at birth.
Good, good,
Um,
good, good baby.
yeah, yeah, he was a good
Not
healthy baby.
not big baby. Good healthy, yes.
Yeah. No, but she said that from all the births that home birth she's done, this is one of the bigger babies that she's had to deliver. And she had never given Pitocin for any home birth. So this was the first time she had administered Pitocin also.
And time was a factor, right? Nothing else. You and the baby were doing fine. It was just the time on hand and the effort that went in that she said,
Yeah, but I think had I gone to a hospital, sometimes I feel like doctors are not patient enough in hospitals. Um, so if I had gone to a hospital, I'm sure they would have said, let's go for a C-section. Because this doctor kept monitoring my blood pressure and his heart rate. And she said, as long as you're okay and he's okay, I'm okay. But I think that's also because I was not stressed out. I was not getting stressed that, oh my God, nothing's happening, it's not progressing, or, getting stressed that I'm not going to be able to do it. I never had that in my head. For me, it was always like, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So, yeah, I think the mindset really helped.
it does, it does. So when the baby was born, how did things look like?
I think I was relieved. I was relieved that he was born because so this doctor does all the things that she does delayed cord clamping, a lot of skin to skin, and she just immediately after he was born, she put him on me. There was no like cleaning and all of that. She just put him on me, and she said, "Keep him like this for 2 to 3 hours. Don't get up from here. Just stay here." Which actually was good, but I felt quite emotionless honestly because I think I was relieved that it was done and then I looked at my husband, he was crying. I looked at my sister, she was crying. And I was like, guys, why are you crying? It's over. And actually, when he was born, so in India, because you don't know the gender of the child, when he was born, everybody said, it's a boy. They all screamed out. I was like, oh, okay, it's a boy. But I had no reaction, maybe because I really badly wanted a girl. Uh, in that moment, I didn't feel anything. Whether it was a boy, it was a girl, I was just like, okay, thank God, this baby is out. It's done. We didn't have to go to a hospital. I managed to push this baby out of my vagina and it's over. So I think I felt a sense of relief, but that was it. Then slowly, I think once the oxytocin kicked in, I felt a little better. And I had forgotten what that labor felt like. Yeah, it felt very different.
After the baby was born. And would you
Yeah.
call it pain? Pain. I ask this to every mother. How would you describe? Will you call it pain? So the sensationalization around birth in the media, in newspapers, everywhere is that it's going to break your bones. All your bones are going to break. It's going to be you'll have to suffer through birth, and it does give us a subconscious signal or message that it's a suffering that one has to endure birth and
I think, and that's what makes women go for elective C-sections because they're so scared to have to endure something like labor. I remember asking my sister, I said, what did it feel like? Did it hurt? And she said, no, it doesn't hurt. It's not pain. It's just discomfort. So I think it's what you make of it in your head because if you think it's going to pain, then it's going to pain. If you think that it's going to be something that you can manage, like period cramps, a lot of women are able to manage their period cramps, then it's just feeling that discomfort. What it felt like for me, I think till the Pitocin was administered, it was very okay. I was able to manage it. My energy levels were good. Everything was fine. I got good breaks in between the contractions, so I was okay. But after the Pitocin is when it got intense. I still wouldn't call it pain. It was just very intense because the contractions just kept coming. Um,
Did it feel a part of your body or did it feel distant from your body? All before that, I'm just guessing that it could have felt like that also.
no, I mean, I don't think it felt anything distant. I just could make out the difference between having pitocin administered versus no pitocin administered. Um, and I just felt like I was not in control. That's what it felt like after having taken something like that. Otherwise, I felt very like in control of what I was going.
And were you using the pool before also, the first few days when you labored, when you were presumably
I
in early?
No, I got into the pool on Tuesday night for the first time. I was there for a couple of hours. I kept getting in and getting out actually. And then even on Tuesday during the day, my doula did some rebozo. Then I went back into the water, came back out of the water, did a few squats and lunges and all of that. So I kept going in and out. I didn't stay in the water. And then once the pitocin was administered, also I was out of the water. And then uh, I didn't get back in after that. So that was last 2 hours of labor.
And it did feel better in the water.
Yes. Yeah, it felt a lot more manageable.
Hmm. Hmm. And when the baby was born, after that, when were you asked to birth the placenta? How did birthing the placenta look like?
Again, it's very easy because once the baby was on me, I don't know how much time went by between the baby being born and then the placenta coming. But there was very minimal pushing and the placenta kind of came out. And Dr. Manjari kind of slightly pulled it out. Um, I don't remember much of that because I remember saying after the baby was born, I said, okay, thank God it's done, no more pushing. And then my sister said, no, the placenta is still left. Of course, it'll feel like a cakewalk now that you've pushed the baby out. But yeah, the placenta, it's very easy, honestly, birthing the placenta.
Yeah, I just want to ask, were you asked to be on an upright position to birth the placenta, or was it
No, I was in the
just
same position. I didn't, because the baby was on me and I did not want to get up from there. So I was in the same position.
okay? And did you feel the after contractions, the afterbirth pains, milder version of contractions when the baby was on you?
No, not really.
Not really.
I
Not
didn't
even
feel it.
1 or 2 hours. Nothing.
No.
Nothing. So were you given some medication after that? Was there any IV? Nothing.
No, no IV. The only thing that I was given was because this was a home birth, the doctor said that she gives this pin she puts in your anus. I forgot what it's called. That is to avoid hemorrhaging. And that was the only thing she said is a non-negotiable because I told her it's not required. But she said, see, you're a first-time mom. I don't know uh, if you have a history of hemorrhages. And she said, if you had had a baby before and if you didn't have a hemorrhage, or even like my friend Payal, she had not hemorrhaged the first time around, so she avoided taking that medication, and that causes some side effects, like you feel like shivering a lot, and I had that. I was shivering a lot. Maybe like 4 5 hours after he was born, I had to like wear a lot of jackets and all of that just to, but it was hardly for like 20 minutes. Um, so that was the only thing that she said. She said, "This is what I'll have to give you. Other than that, I don't prescribe any. There was no IV. Nothing was given."
Yeah. Usually at home births, in traditional midwifery, again, just to draw a parallel, nothing is given to avoid a hemorrhage. Hemorrhage usually doesn't happen because body takes care of itself. It's not the blood; it's how the woman is feeding. It's hemorrhage has nothing to do with the amount of blood you lose, which is in contextual in textbooks how it's there. It has to do with how you're responding to the loss of blood. So if the woman is feeling dizzy, if the woman is not active, if the woman is not able to handle the blood loss, maybe it's as little as 300 ml. But one woman would be okay with it, and one woman may still not be okay with it. So that is the time we intervene and help the mother work with the lost blood. So yeah, okay. And the placenta was born, and then how did you feel, and what was done? Did everybody go, and how did the afterbirth felt like?
So we decided to keep the placenta because we planted the placenta in our garden, and That's also another thing of a home birth. I think if you were in a hospital, storing that placenta and figuring out where to keep it would have been painful. So we kept the placenta. We did this whole delayed cord clamping and everything. Dr. Manchari was there for some time. I think she was there for about half an hour to 45 minutes after he was born. Just, I needed a few stitches, so she stitched me up. And our doula, Nikita, was there for an hour, I think, after he was born, because I think doulas also check whether your baby latches and for breastfeeding and all of that. So he started feeding immediately. And yeah, my sister was there and my husband was there. So once the doctor and the doula left, there was a whole cleanup that was required, right? Because we had a pool, there was water in it, there was a whole like pool of blood around me. So my sister and my husband really they cleaned everything. They did a very, very good job. Um, yeah, everything was done. I think after he was born, maybe in an hour or two. Also, my sister's husband and her two kids, they were waiting because we were laboring upstairs in our bungalow. And my mom, she said, I'm not coming up till the baby is born. And that's, I think, a good thing because there are certain people you want with you during labor and there are certain people you don't want. It's not like I told her not to come, but she said, I can't see all of this, so I'm not going to even come. I'll make food and keep if anybody wants to eat, they can come down and eat. So my brother-in-law and the two kids, my sister's two kids, they all were there at home since 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a weekday. They all took the day off. The kids bunked school. My brother-in-law bunked office. They were home.
Real celebration.
Yeah, but the baby was born only at 6:30 in the evening. And these kids, they sleep early. The bedtime is at 7 o'clock. So as soon as the baby was born, they wanted to come see the baby. So once things were a little cleaned up, they came. And they're small. One is 6 and one is 9. So they came, saw the baby. It was very cute. It was a very nice moment for us as a family also. And yeah, so they left, and then my sister and my husband had to clean up everything.
Lovely, lovely. Your sister had home births?
No,
She's the one you
she had
no.
she had two kids, and they both were in hospital. They were hospital births, but they were both water births.
Water births. Oh, lovely. So, if I have to ask you this, if you have another baby ever as a hypothesis, what would you want to, how would you want to have it? And if it's the same experience, if you want to have a home birth, what would be the things that you would want to have in it? And if there's anything you would like to change?
If I have to have another baby, which I think is too early to even think about, but I don't think I'm going to have another baby. But I would do the same thing. I would have a home birth again. This time I would want to experience how labor feels and not back labor feels, because everyone that I spoke to, like moms that I spoke to, they said, "Oh my God, you had back labor. We've heard back labor is very intense, but you don't know what it feels like unless you actually go through it." Because I didn't feel anything in the front, everything was on the back, and I think that really took a toll on my back in some ways also. I would do everything the same. I would have the same birth team also. I think the only thing is I would put a mirror in front of the bed in case I have to deliver the baby on the bed. That is the only thing that I would probably do differently. Otherwise, I would do the same. And we also have, and my sister has a dog and we have a dog at home. Both the dogs were also at home throughout. So it was very cute because I was going through a contraction and my dog would come. She was very concerned and she was very close to me. So she would come and she would just stand next to me, look at me, hope I was okay, and then she would go. So we wouldn't have been able to have this kind of an experience in a hospital.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's lovely, Rashmi. Is there anything you'd like to say to the mums who are listening to this episode as a pregnant woman who are still on the fence deciding what and how they want to plan their birth?
Yeah, one is that don't let age deter you, because I think a lot of women who are above the age of 35, they are spoken to very differently by doctors. So I would say that as long as you are healthy and you are ensuring that you're eating right and exercising and taking care of your health, you can have a baby even when you're 40, and I don't think that should deter you. The other thing that I would say is there's a lot of, I think, preconceived notions about home birth, which is one of the reasons why I did not tell anybody. But one of my inspirations was my grandmother. And my grandmom had she had 4 children totally. And out of the four, 3 of them were home births. So I think in the past, women were birthing at home. And my other grandmother, actually, recently, she was telling me She said during her mother's time, she said people would never go to hospitals for births because it was never considered a medical situation to be in a hospital. Of course, infant mortality rate was a lot higher at that time because the medical infrastructure was much lesser, and high risk pregnancies would probably be, different at that time. But she said nobody ever went to the hospital. Only later people started going to hospitals, and now it has become so normal to go to a hospital to have a baby that people think that, oh my God, you're doing something so different by having a baby. But so my maternal grandmother was one of my inspirations actually to have this baby at home. And for me, I was just like, okay, as long as we have a doctor on board, we have a hospital close by. We had a backup hospital which is 3 minutes away.
So, on a closing note, what would you say to women who are still on the fence deciding between a hospital or a home birth, or do not know that they might have an option until they've explored it? So, what would you like to say to them?
One is that I would tell people to not be scared because I think fear is a big emotion associated with childbirth. And especially if you're above the age of 35, doctors tend to scare you. They say it's a geriatric pregnancy and it's very high risk and you need to be careful, blah, blah, blah. So I think age doesn't matter as long as you are healthy and you are taking care of yourself. That is one. I think the second thing is that we as a society have moved away from having this concept of childbirth as something that's natural and just having to go to the hospital because of the fear that is ingrained in our minds. Yeah, we think that, oh my God, if I don't go to the hospital, something is going to go terribly wrong, which could happen, but it doesn't happen in most of the cases. So the reason that I did not tell anybody that we were doing a home birth is because people would just be scared. So I think that we need to get fear out of our heads and know that our bodies are capable of doing so much and trust in our bodies. That is very important. And my inspiration for having these home births was my grandmother. My maternal grandmother had 3 children at home. Her father was a doctor, so he was the doctor who was delivering her babies for her. So for me, I had the reassurance that there was a doctor at home with me during the birth. I had a doula to help out. My sister who had 2 kids. My husband who was there to support me through everything. And if we needed a hospital, there was a hospital 3 minutes away. So, and the doctor had told me, she said, if it comes to any kind of emergency, I'm not going to wait till the end that, emergency C-section we have to do. I'm not going to wait till there. She said, I will wait to a point where I feel like we can travel 1.5 hours back to my hospital. So she said, that is the call that I'm going to take, that I'm not going to wait till a last minute emergency where everybody's in a state of panic. So that's one of the reasons that I also trusted her, because I knew that she would not let things go south or wait till the end. So she had a good judgment call, I think, also towards the end. And one of the things that she did, I'm digressing a little bit, was that she did not stay in the room with us throughout. She would always go away, she would be by herself and then come back maybe a few hours later and come to see how we were doing. So she had to keep herself occupied for so long because most doctors will go do their other work and come back. But she had to just sit and wait in my house for this long. So that is a doctor who's being amazingly patient, I would say. Yeah, doctors, they come to you only when it's time for you to deliver in hospitals. And this is another problem that I had, because I know from my sister's experience, there were random people coming to do internal checks. And the nurses just keep coming in and out. They keep ruining your sanctum and your peace. And there's just too many people around. Then the pediatrician will come in, the lactation consultant will come in. Ye theek hai, wo theek hai. They'll keep giving you tips and advice and all of that. And I just want to avoid all of that, which is one of the reasons why I said I don't want a hospital setup. And I remember asking the hospital that we were thinking of going to initially, I had asked them some questions about who's going to be there during the birth experience. Will the doctor be there when I come to the hospital? So she said, see, the doctor will come, but the junior doctor will be there. I said, I'm not paying your doctor a big sum of money just so that he can come whenever he feels like. He better be there when I want him to be there. So this felt reassuring that the doctor was there for you throughout your birth, throughout your labor and delivery. So yeah, I think people shouldn't be scared.
Yeah. It's comforting from your story that I hear that you were heard as well as you had a choice in everything. So, just the way you're articulating your experience when you say, She will tell you 1.5 hours before. She kept you in all the decision making, in what she's thinking, how she's thinking. And you also had a call whether or not to um, align or have your queries in place or say yes or no. Just the sheer basic right of a birthing woman to say yes or no. And this is how I feel about it. Do you think that was also the case that helped you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think most women don't know that they have a choice. They just listen to the doctor and do what the doctor tells them to do. But even for this 38-week internal check, the doctor had said initially, she said, we'll do an internal check. And she wanted to do, they'd make you drink this sugary drink to check if you have gestational diabetes. So I did not do that as well. I said I refuse to do this because I'm fine. I said I will do a random sugar test because I was doing blood tests to check my thyroid levels because I have an autoimmune thyroid disorder. So just to do that, so I said, anyway, I'm doing blood tests, so I will do that, but I'm not going to drink that sugary drink. So she did not insist. And for the 38-week check, she said, okay, if you don't want to do it, fine. But what we could do instead is if you hit 40 and if you cross 40, then you do one sonography so that I can see whether there is anything happening through the scan. That was what she had suggested as an alternative, but she did not say, nahi, ye karna hi padega, and you have to do this, otherwise, it'll not be okay. She was okay with me saying that I don't want to do it. And a lot of women don't know that they have that choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking informed decisions. And your doctor has a very strong equality in a serving relationship. That sort of an understanding. Many a times, doctors have an authoritative position, and that's what gets us in a place of being mentored or surrender quickly to somebody who's mentoring us, because we've all our life in school, everywhere, we've been taught that if there's an authority figure, we have to listen, be obedient, listen, tum sunte nahi ho. Even in our subconscious mind, sometimes we have to think twice, thrice, or muster that courage to ask a question, to not come across as rebellious, which is your basic right, even coming across as rebellious. But it takes so much effort and energy because that space was never given to us as children. It all comes from our life experiences also, to be able to master that courage, which we all have that right. Government of India gives us, all women, the patient's rights to be able to take in informed decision making. Meaning, if you're not told about how this procedure will look like, what can it do to you, what would be the repercussions, or what is going to be the benefits, it's your right to ask and choose, and maybe have a second
But then
opinion.
that's where birth education comes into play, because people don't do it themselves. They don't know that they have options. They think that whatever the doctor said, that's what we have to do. So childbirth education is what everyone must do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how is your husband's reaction later, in when you would go on hindsight, reminiscing the birth, talking about it later? How was his, as a first time dad? This must have been such a beautiful as well as an empowering experience to see you birth.
No, I think he has PTSD, and he says that himself. I think that's what I was saying. So after the baby was born, he was crying and my sister was crying. My sister got emotional, but he was like, thank God she doesn't have to go through this anymore, because for him, he felt like it was too much for my body to go through, and he couldn't see my body going through that much. So, and this other friend of mine who also had a baby, very close, and our husband also says that they share their experiences. So I think for men, because they're not going through it themselves and they're just being a witness, it's too much to see their loved one go through something like this, and they're like, listen, no more. We're not going to do this again. I don't want you to go through this again. But as a woman, I think because you experience it, you feel like my body could do it. So my body can do it again very easily. But I think like sometimes if I'm watching the birthing video, or if I talk to him about something, he said, listen, please, that's PTSD. It was too much for me to handle. So I think it was a little overwhelming for him, because watching the video is one thing, but actually doing it, having your wife have that your baby is another. Because we watch so many childbirth videos during our childbirth education class that we felt ready. But when you actually have to experience it, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we must, and that's a signal to me. I must have men come up and speak about their experiences. So it's a
Yes.
collective place for them to share their thoughts and also help other men who are preparing to have their children at home or in a space when it's all raw, beautiful. However you want to describe it, everybody has a different experience. But
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
talking about that, there are so many hospitals that still don't allow the husbands or the partners or whoever to come into the delivery room, which is
yeah.
so sad.
That's what you need and that's what I've seen at births. Women at some point would, I have been thrown out of the room. And this is when I make sure that I'm not in the eye of the woman. So when a woman is laboring, I would sit behind her. And I think it was the third or the fourth mother that's when I was practicing earlier on, like starting my journey as a traditional birth keeper. The mother said, "Why aren't you sitting right here? Why are you trying to hide yourself?" And she was in early labor, and I was like, "No, I don't want to be in your birth space because I don't want you to be conscious of me in this room because this is your private space." So I've forgotten what I was saying, but all I was, I don't know why did I bring this up?
We were talking about men not being allowed in the hospital birthing
Yeah,
rooms.
and yes, and there has been experiences where at some point when I'm not even in the in your eyesight, women have asked everybody to leave the room and just bring my husband. I want to hold his hand. I want to talk to him. I want him in the room. So there's so much comfort that women need, a sense of safety, and husbands sometimes are those people. And I'm not generalizing. For some, maybe that's not the case. For some people, they may not want their husbands in the room. That's also absolutely all right. You should have whoever you want to have in your birth space. But in so many ways, it's sad. It's an opportunity of experience lost and a connection lost.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Rashmi. Would you like to add anything else? Would you like to share anything else?
No, I think I've said everything that I wanted to say.
No, Azia, it was lovely speaking to you. It was lovely to have your story added to the list of women who are owning their birth, who are going back to the very primal journey. And sometimes it's not all hunky dory. Sometimes it brings so many answers to us that we were looking for. It tells us so many things that we did not know about ourselves in the journey itself. And that's for us to reflect and understand. And it's so personal. And that makes it beautiful, no matter how varied and how diverse that experience in itself is. Sometimes it cannot fit into labels. But thank you so much for contributing to this podcast, Rashmi.
My pleasure. There's just one more thing that I want to say. I think a lot of times women are stuck to the idea of wanting to have a vaginal birth. And I think that in my head, I was open to transferring to a hospital if that meant that, I need to have a C-section. And I think that plays a very integral role in your postpartum journey because sometimes if you're stuck with a certain idea of how you want your births to be, eventually you end up being very disappointed. Uh, I may have been disappointed if I had to have a C-section, but I remember having multiple conversations with my doula, with my husband, with the doctor, that if it came to a point where I would need a C-section, then it's best for, the baby and for yourself. So I think it's also important to be open to not being stuck in what you think you want for yourself and being open to exploring and having different experiences. Also, the society's mindset, because I remember a lot of people asked me, they were like, so did you have a normal delivery or did you have a C-section? And there was this whole thing of, oh, you're a yoga teacher, you better have had a normal delivery. But I think there has to be a shift in the way that we talk about it because what is normal is not what should be said normal. Like I would say we should call it a vaginal birth or a C-section instead of calling normal. Because when you say normal, then you're normalizing having a vaginal birth, but having a C-section means that you did something different or abnormal. So I think it's important to change the terminology and speak differently and not expect women to birth a certain way and let them do what is comfortable or what was required for them in that.
Yeah.
I have a little twisted view on this, but to add to this very important point that you've brought up is part of the reason why women get traumatized due to their cesarean sections is because they're not a part of the decision making. Many a times in the hospitals, the decisions are taken because of a lack of time, because the unavailability of the doctor, because the doctor has to go to certain other places. I mean, there's a holiday in picture, and there's no transparency. Nobody is telling you that I have a holiday to attend. I have a holiday, and I don't want to be working on that. And you may go into labor at that point in time. So you induced unnecessarily. There's so many medical interventions that are brought in that the mother who's not prepared, is not able to comprehend. But deep down, a voice within her says, had it been a different path, I would have been able to go through it. So I think that transparency and that honesty in the experience, I don't think so any woman for whom when it comes to her baby, she'll choose the baby and nothing else would matter to her when it comes to the safety of herself and her baby. She would happily go for a surgery. And that's what it was always designed for. It was designed to save and to intervene only when required. The problem that has come in as that it has become so rampant, and nobody's asking women who go through it and have a postpartum anxiety, have postpartum depression, trauma response to it. They're not. There is no space that they're able to unload that experience without being judged either ways. So that part about judgment is so important to bring up. Yeah.
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 True.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rashmi. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Remember, you can sign up for a private complete birth preparation course from my website. If you enjoyed this episode, consider giving us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also donate as a token of appreciation or love too. In the show description, click support the podcast and make your donation now. Thank you so much. Much love. There is a field beyond fear where the body is empowered to take on labor and birth. To land there, it is crucial to take birth education. To enroll into our unique labor and birth preparation course, reach out to us at www.birthagni.com or scroll through all available prenatal and postnatal preparation classes. Thank you for listening, all in the spirit of birth, womanhood, and freedom. Remember, you got the power. This podcast is about physiological birth and does not offer or claim to provide medical knowledge or diagnosis.
Starting a podcast with poor recording tools in the market? It was painful until I found Zencaster. Its high quality audio and video recording, along with the option of a backup, makes it super sturdy and a savior at times. With an easy to use dashboard and super convenient tools for advertising campaigns such as reels and videos, Zencaster is my comfort choice. Go to zencaster.com/pricing and use my code BIRTHAGNI, BIRTHAGNI, and you will get 30% off of your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. You may also explore their free hobbyist plan to begin with.